Imagine this. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your feelings. This is your house. But is it your home? Hi, I'm Nelson DeMello, and join me as we try to find our home beyond our borders. I don't know, I think that's fine.
Yeah, that's a good take.
Guys, have you ever heard of the term overregulization? Or, I forgot the other term, the synonym for it. But the idea is when a kid, for example, is learning English, right? They will use past tense like twice. You know what I'm saying? So instead of saying, oh, he broke it, he would say, he broke it. Yeah, it's adorable, right? But the idea is they use the generalizing way to do past tense, which is add ed to the word, right? And then, but they also learn that like break, broke, right? Like it's an irregular verb. And so they use both just in case. So, you know, you do the same thing with like plurals, right? You just add an S to the end. Feets or foots, right? It's not foots, it's foot, feet. All right. Do I know English? I am not an encyclopedia. I had to Google that. I'm a normal man, just like you. And but the idea behind that, I feel like, although this is like a linguistical term, it very much applies to a kid growing up, right? So why do I bring that up? Today, we explore the chronology of my sexuality, I guess. Yikes. Yeah. Mom, Dad, don't listen to this one. Oh, wow. But yeah, so as a kid, I remember, which I think is actually very common. I feel like I've heard stories of this, maybe not like as common as everyone goes through this, but this idea of like, okay, my mom and my dad kiss. Okay. People who love each other kiss. And then, you know, not my case, of course, but, you know, oh, you kiss, you know, your dad in the mouth because, you know, Tom Brady. Or, you know, you kiss your sibling in the mouth. You're like, I don't know if that feels weird. I actually don't understand. Like, or like, you know, you kiss a boy with long hair and you're like, I guess, right? That's weird. I guess then you start growing up and you realize, no, I like girls at some point. Well, I don't really know. I don't know. See, and this is the thing. I don't necessarily know when and if that actually happened. What ended up happening? Yeah, I need to take a pause. So what ended up happening? I'm like questioning all of this because I'm looking back and I'm like, dude, all girls look like boys and all boys look like girls, you know, for a long time until like puberty. So, and I know there was like, I don't even know if it was like sexual. That's the thing, right? It's like more like, oh, this is how we express love is through kisses, you know? And so there's a lot there. I think though, when we create the narrative of our life and that becomes like, you know, a part of our identity, it's like Inside Out too, I think, when like any of those memories could have been like identity memories, but there were specific ones that she herself went through that became core memories, right? So we could all go through this weird androgynous phase where, you know, we're kissing people just out of love, like, oh man, I just really like you as a person, mwah, you know, and then that can affect you. And now you're 25 years old and you think you're bisexual, you know what I mean? So I mean that's a theory I have, I guess, is that some people are just like their core memories are geared towards sexuality, like sexual experiences. Not saying that's all of them. Well, because, you know, there's also abuse. There's also proclivities, like genetic proclivities and stuff like that. It's a complicated topic, for sure. And looking at my experience, breaking it down, because I think a lot of people, they like to deconstruct everything around them, right? They like to deconstruct the Bible, deconstruct Christianity, deconstruct the government system. And they don't even think about deconstructing themselves, which, I mean, I know isn't exactly like the full message of the parable. Well, I don't even think it's a parable. It's a teaching that Jesus says, like, hey, you're looking at the speck in someone's eye. You can't look at the log in your own eye. That's crazy. So you have to inspect yourself, right? Break yourself down. Why do I, believe what I believe? Maybe the system, like maybe the system that you have a bad relationship with has to do with your part in how you see it, right? Anyways, so yeah, I remember I kind of started young. I did, at least with the ladies. Like I always had my little girlfriends and this and that. Always a secretive though. I don't know why. I don't. Oh, I mean, I think it was just like I talked about last episode. I just didn't have that relationship with my parents to be open about that stuff. I definitely know that my mom, you know what, a perfectly understandable fear. She would ask me a lot, like, hey, did anyone grope you? Like, did anyone touch you? In any way, you tell me. I don't care what they say, you tell me. And I'm like, okay, cool. And yeah, that never happened, thankfully. I don't want to out nobody because even if I say like what they were in my life, people would know. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to out nobody. But there were some older women in my life, let's say. Not that older though, just like 6-7 years apart. As I was growing up, or maybe it was 4, but they were just kind of post-pubescent. That was pre-pubescent. Yeah, And I would talk about it with my friends, and they were like, bro, you totally got groped by your babysitter or whatever. It wasn't my babysitter. I mean, maybe it was. I don't know. I'm not going to say. And they were laughing, or not laughing, but they were just like high-fiving me and this and that. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's the weird thing. I initiated, I think. But what was I thinking? You know what I mean? Isn't that a strange thing? That definitely did happen. And yeah, I mean, yeah, she couldn't have been more than a couple years older than me. But yeah, see, I don't want to out nobody. And that, like, it is what it is, and it didn't happen. And again, it could have been traumatic for somebody else. And I think maybe it was kind of defining in my life in a certain way, in a certain aspect. But I didn't, but it didn't traumatize me. It didn't traumatize me because, like, I initiated. That was the weird part. So for me, I was the weird one in that. Like, yeah, sure, maybe she would have, but she was like a kid too, you know what I mean? Like, let's say I was like 9 and she was like 12, 13. It's like, that's just a, that's not statutory. She's a kid too, you know what I'm saying? But it is what it is. I don't remember ages. I don't remember any of that. And I wouldn't want to give those details because, again, like, if somebody tried to feel mad for me, you're messing up, right? Because, again, I more blame myself. Like, looking back, like, if that was a thing, I was like, I definitely did that. And yeah, I mean, she was very passive in that. So it was more of a mark in my life of, like, you got this weird sexuality thing that you're repressing, right? Let's see. Through middle school and high school, it was definitely a way to cope for my need for attention. But again, remember, it was late high school that I had my whole villain arc thing. And that's like when I thought, like, that's when my brain broke. But when I was saying that, like, the recipe was there of me, going full on narcissist, the recipe was there. Like, the need for attention was there. Just seeking that out, trying to, I don't even know if it was manipulative. If it was subconscious. And I say that because I remember one thing. My dad, I don't think he meant to like, hey, this is how you get girls or whatever, but he was saying like, hey man, the love of God, like when you when you show that to people, people are gonna get the wrong idea sometimes. You know, they this is my dad as my youth pastor talking to me that was 11 years old, 12 years old. And he was essentially saying, like, dude, when you show that kind of love to somebody, like they can get the wrong idea. Like when you listen to their problems, when you're there for them, when you hug them, when it's like platonic, like they will get the wrong idea. And so I think that stuck with me a little bit, and that kind of became my MO, because I genuinely did care at the beginning. I just saw that, okay, you have the same problem for weeks, months. It's like, dude, either get over it, make a change in your life, like, let's go, hurry up, and I would get bored. And the only way to maintain that excitement to be in that relationship probably was to get some kind of, let's say, benefit. I think you're catching on. But, so that was kind of the MO. Let's see. And what happened with that, I remember, I think I talked a little bit about it, but again, I was only exposed to like adult film stuff, like in my late teens, and because I had this thing of like only losers, like nerds that live in basements, need that, because if you can get it in real life, you're gonna get it. You know what I mean? What I guess I'm trying to build on is this idea that the more I pursued like relationships, well, I also lost my virginity, in my 20s, early 20s, late teens, because I had that, that Christian thing. Wait, hold up. If at any point in this you said, hey, I never thought about it like that, please subscribe. What are you doing, man? I'm trying to pay my bills. Okay, anyways, let's get back to the serious stuff. All right, see it. I was like Joe Jonas. I think he openly talks about it. Like everything except for sex. You know what I mean? That was also my God. Yo, this is kind of weird. This is raw and gross. If you're cringing, dude, imagine me. But I mean that was life, man. So, yeah, everything except for it. And that actually reminds me, there's this blonde stand-up comedian. I'm not remembering her name right now, but she talks about like, if you like you guys, I don't want to, it's vulgar, but basically like there were some girls like outside because she grew up in church too or whatever, but like the boys she was messing with had the same rules, and so they would always get off, or she would always get off, where the other girls, because they were going into relations too early and this and that, and they don't know what they were doing, and they would hurry it up or whatever, and they were always unsatisfied kind of deal. And and then that also became a pride point for me. Brr. Yeah, this is weird. I don't know if that's too much. Is that too much? You're gonna have to comment down below. But yeah, so I thought myself as a lover boy. I was the guy. I remember like me being all proud and arrogant that guys would have a notch on their belt, they'd keep score or whatever. But I had a second, like I kept score by ratio of satisfactory customers. Let's just leave it at that. And that I kept record that way because I was better than everyone else. And okay, so, but I think that also speaks to the mind of me being a people pleaser, and that this was the way my brain created pathways for me to achieve people pleasing, achieve the fulfillment of people pleasing. This was one of the clearest pathways. Well, okay, and so, and throughout this, there was still going back to that idea of like overregulization. I started to hint on, like, there are some friends that I really, really admired, And it wasn't like fantasy or I would dream about them or whatever the case was, but I became like curious. I never acted on that. And for the same reason, look, if I was LGBTQ, I would be old school LGBTQ. You know what I mean? You know, remember when gay people didn't like bi people because bi people had a choice and you're choosing to like have a sucky life, I guess. You know what I'm talking about? Like you're choosing to get persecuted. You're choosing not to be normal. And like that was the narrative. And now honestly, it's like flipped around where it's like, oh, you're not? Are you sure? Are you sure you're sure? You know what I mean? But back then, so I like the old school games, you know, keep it to I'm just kidding. Keep it to yourself, you know, complain about bisexuals. Those were the best. No, but that idea really like penetrated, no pun intended, me in the idea that I thought, okay, well, if I have a choice in the matter, because it seems like, you know, I'm attracted to all types and all kinds or whatever the case is, you know, whatever. I'm just going to stick to women. It's a less complicated life that way. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to open Pandora's box. And that's kind of what was going on. So I didn't realize it at the time, but there was a moment in therapy that I realized I was like normal. You find people that you admire. You find people that attract you, not sexually, because of their character or their personality, right? I think at some point or growing up, whatever the case is, and I think this. So yeah, let me add that aspect of, if you remember the distance I had with my dad, the emotional intimacy that I was craving with finding character and personality attractive. It was this concoction of anybody who had great character or a good personality, and would give me attention, had the possibility of me being sexually attracted to them. So there was this miswiring or this pathway. And this was something that I realized, like, why I say that is because when I went through therapy and I resolved that need between my dad, it kind of went away in the sense of like the hopeless romantic side of that died. Of course, you know, I'll see a hard worker or like somebody, saves, I don't know, an old lady from getting ran over or something. That's like in surface, but something like that would happen and I'd be like, whoa. Oh my God. you know? So yeah, there's that aspect where, and I don't know, I've never read this. I've never heard anyone talk about this, but it's an interesting idea that I think can apply to a lot of people. And it's just the idea that like, there's just this narrative that hasn't been broken down. It's this like storyline of, because if I didn't deconstruct myself and if I didn't try to understand my sexuality, I don't think I would have understood that the root of, let's call it pansexuality, that the root of it is based on the emotional needs that I needed, in my inner being. Why would I say it's pansexual and not bisexuality? Well, there were people in college, like, it's college. People are fluid, Some of those fluid people would give me this gaze. And honestly, and I think there was just like an instance of trauma bonding. I think what they were looking for is emotional validation and like they were like wanting, like searching and longing. And that mirrored me. That like we like slapped vibes. And so I would quickly look away and I was like, I will not talk to that person because Pandora's box, right? So there's just moments like that where, this is weird. Imagine
Yeah, well, I mean, it is what it is. This is the I Was series. So that misfiring of the brain, where you're conflating ideas together, right? Making it to where emotional intimacy means sexual intimacy, and those two come together. Now, am I still kind of wired that way? Yeah. But I'm defined, like it's not so ambiguous in my brain even. Like I don't have to tell myself, "Oh, don't do that." I've understood and learned about myself, about what's going on, where my brain just doesn't try to create, you know, attraction where it's inappropriate. You know what I mean? And so, and in the small case that it would happen, because it has happened in the past, it's a quick thing of like, that's not me. That's not what I'm meant to be. That's not who I am deep down. And I know that's a weird thing, because I think especially in the community, it's like, if I feel that way, that must be the truth. And that's not necessarily the case, right? I use this story a lot of like, okay, imagine your house burns down and you thought your dog was in there and you're crying, right? Rightfully so. And you're crying, you're bitter, you hate everything. And then your dog is still alive because it went out the back door. Your feelings are real, but they're not based on reality, because your dog is still alive. You're crying as if your dog is dead because in your mind, your dog is dead, but your dog is not dead. So what does that say? It means that although your feelings are valid through your perspective, doesn't mean that it's the reality. And I think that's why it's important to deconstruct oneself, to understand, like, is this really what's going on? Is this the truth? You know, people care so much about the truth. Well, actually, I don't think they care about the truth. I think truth becomes like an asset. Truth becomes this thing where people use it as coinage. What do you call it? Yeah, dude, English. You know, but the idea is, it's like this transactional thing. Like, I have the power if I hold all the truth, but no one can know the truth about me. You know. And so that doesn't mean you love the truth. That means that you like to use the truth, right? That's the whole gotcha. That's the whole cancel. That's the whole, whatever. But no one's willing to put themselves out there. So here I am, doing that, showing what loving truth looks like. So my goodness, fire. What was I talking about? Like my pansexuality. Yeah. So for anyone who's wondering, like, what the heck is pansexuality? Pardon my language, but it's the fuckboys of fuckboys. It is like, because, dude, Trevor Wallace, his little skit, and he's like, oh, dude, if I vibe, I vibe, dude. It's that, but literally not just with, like, what's your type? Oh, dude, I don't have a type. If we vibe, And that's just like a horny guy who just will get it any way he can, kind of deal. And essentially that's kind of what pansexuality is. I'm not saying like the idea behind it is if I can get it, I will kind of deal. But it's this, if I vibe with literally anyone. And that kind of becomes a thing. And I do think it's like a very emotional thing. And again, like, there are these connections, I think, with need and this weird blending of, like, it's like classical conditioning in a sense. Well, it's the other conditioning, whatever, actually. But imagine if anytime, like, okay, this is a battery, right? Imagine that anytime, like, my wife were to give me this battery and then also give me a chocolate at the same time, I would eat the chocolate, whatever. And then she stopped giving me the chocolate. But every time she gave me this, I had a bitter taste in my mouth because
I need a chocolate. I'm like craving it now. Every time she shows me this battery, I'm now craving it. So I think there was something along my life that conflated the two things together. Conflated emotional intimacy and sexual intimacy. The other aspect of that is the emotion. Because of the emotional need, this kind of got me down an interesting line. Again, I told you my villain arc was basically my like part 2 of my villain arc when I was gonna go full sociopath. It was in the heat of it, right? Wolf of Wall Street style, rubbing them off, whether it was with girls in different area codes. So hoes in different area codes. There was this app. I don't think it's a thing anymore, but it was basically like a Tinder, except when you match, you'd get each other's Snapchat. And I put the the area for it to be like 10,000 miles. So I matched with people like in England. I matched people, in freaking Utah. I matched with people like all over. And so I just had that, going. There was this I know, maybe this is TMI. I don't know. I really don't know. But there's this girl that I was playing Words with Friends with. Don't know her. And we just started chatting up, and then we started talking, and then we kind of had a, relationship thing. My arc, like the there's this trope for OnlyFans girls, right? And that's basically, well, I like, I sent nudes for free, and I was like, I might as well get paid to do this kind of deal. That kind of ran through my mind a little bit. I was just so comfortable on camera with that. I was like, I don't know. Put it in the back of my head. If the opportunity ever arises, you're not going to find me anywhere online. That's for sure. That's only because of the grace of God. And I say that because there are a few girls that I'd kind of be with that had that conversation of like, hey, we can easily make, $500,000, $2 million, and then stop and just be set for the rest of your life. Did you know that if you put $2 million in a safety account, no, like a savings account, okay, the interest you would make on that would probably be enough to pay your bills for the year, like easily. Like you'd make like $60,000 out of interest. Now, of course, I understand, inflation would then, get to a certain point where that $2 million means nothing. But like, that's if you put in savings. That's like the lowest way to accrue interest. So if you did, half of that in savings and then the other half in stocks or whatever, you'd make like $100,000, $140,000. You don't need all that. My goodness, that to me is crazy. So yeah, we I did the math on that, and so and when I was in the middle of getting my mind right, I was abstinent, and it was actually, I would say, kind of comical going back a little bit. Yeah, I'm all over the place, dude. This isn't chronological. I don't know how to tell a story that way, honestly. But let me actually just pause it right now. Yeah, I do need to back up though, for real, because, dude, this is so funny. So what used to happen was, so I'm in college, right? I'm spilling my guts out, total vulnerability to my youth minister, young adult, college minister. Yeah, that's better. College minister, and my therapist, right? This might have been before therapy. Yeah, no, this was definitely before therapy. So I was still spilling my guts to my college minister, and I would tell him all of the things that I'd get into, right? I'd be like, oh, I met this girl. She might be the one. And he'd be like, dude, you're called to singleness. There is no the one for you. You're going to be alone for the rest of your life. Be happy with that. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then I would be hanging out with this guy, girl,
smitten. And then we'd sleep together and be like, oh, well, my wife, like, we're not going to sleep together that fast, you know? So next. And then I would just do that. And that would be the cycle. And then I'd be like, oh man, you're right. She wasn't the one, this and that. And be like, I told you, man, you're called the singleness. And after a while, I started to kind of believe it, which I think it was so funny. I mean, I don't have that many partners, so relax. I mean, it doesn't matter. But I mean, I don't think it's more than double digits, to be honest. That just happened 4 or 5 times. No, not even that. Or it was just like through text. I was like, she was not the one. All right, whatever. Hey guys, thank you so much for going on this journey with me. If you like the content, please like, subscribe, follow, and remember, there is more to life, and that is good news. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.